I'm joined, as ever, of course, by Laure Jackson of Sante on Jersey. Hello, Anne.
Hello, it's great to see you.
Now, you have fairly recently, you've got a new centre on Jersey. Let's just give us the why. Why do you need a centre on Jersey for Sensory Health? How does that help people?
Oh wow. Oh, it is a centre for all ages, all stages, all kinds of people are free to be able to use it because we are all sensory beings. That's part of the message that I'm trying to get out, that we should all be in our best sensory health. But it's partly there for those who are definitely neurodivergent, would like a space where they can be in control of the sights, the sounds, how busy it is, how noisy it is, just so they can control the environment and come and relax as a family together. Or it can be for schools to come and bring people in who don't want to learn at school. They're having problems with accessing that environment. For adults with learning disabilities, for older people to be able to come and connect together, to have a place where they can come and have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, play some dominoes, play some cards. Again, in an environment that they can control the atmosphere, really, of what is going on. So it can be a private use or it can be a shared space like any other kind of soft play area. It's not really soft play. It is sensory integration equipment. So it's about the movement. It's about really stimulating the vestibular system in all kinds of different movement ways. And it's also quite risky. Lots of places have to be designed so that they are as safe as can be with the numbers of people that they have. Mine is limited to a maximum of 4 families at a time, but it has the element of risk that it's very unstable equipment in there because the brain develops better with an element of risk, a managed risk. So it's got a very different feel to a normal play area or just a safe zone, partly because of the equipment that's in there, but also because you can book it out just one person at a time.
That leads me not to the topic for today, which I do have one up my sleeve, but risk and learning, because you just said the brain learns better when there's some instability or when there's some risk. What Expound that one a bit. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it comes into the element of, to do something that has an element of risk means that someone has to be motivated to do it. Unless they're being forced, I'm not going to go down that route because that's not nice. But when we choose to do something that stretches us a little bit, then boy, is the brain engaged. So it's like the whole brain fires, the whole brain comes alive in trying to do this thing, whether it be a thought processes or whatever it is that the body and the brain are trying to do. It just gets the whole brain involved because there's an element of risk. So arousal levels increase, which is great for the most part. We do have to watch for those who are overreactive, but generally that little bit of extra motivation, that extra something that gets the whole brain activated and alert, makes really good for building neurons in the brain, making connections, building good things within the brain and connecting it well with the body.
It's interesting because things like adventure parks or theme parks, that sort of thing. Obviously, you've got roller coasters and you've got all these different things, and they're all built, we assume, of course, to a really high standard. Therefore, they're safe, they're not dangerous, but they do create risk or fear, but in a very controlled and measured way, which, of course, some people like. Now, I hate them with a vehement passion because I had a very bad physical stomach reaction. Not so much I was sick because I didn't like it, but it really did mess my stomach up a bit on one ride. So I don't like them. Some people do because it's bringing in that element of instability, that unstableness, and that risk. And then I just found that really interesting. You're saying the brain works well when things are unstable because, of course, we have to apply it more. It's a bit like having a greater load. If you want to build a bigger muscle, you need to, over time, incrementally add more weight and try and lift that weight. And eventually, over time, your muscle will grow. And in the same context, I guess, with the brain, it's the same sort of principle.
It is, and that's where there's a difference between sensory stimulation and sensory integration. So say if you're going on a roller coaster, is your vestibular system, this movement system, that is so stimulated in a way that there is nothing on Earth. Literally, you can go to space and get the experience, but there's nothing on Earth that will give you that sensory stimulation for the upside down, for the speed, for the movement, for the jerking, for the upside down, for All of that is sensory stimulation, but your body's not doing anything. You are sat, you are strapped in because you're going to die. If you're not well strapped in, you're going to fly off and land somewhere. So it is all about stimulating the vestibular system. That is different to sensory integration, where I want movement. I want the head to be upside down or to have different experiences, but it is in the context of the body moving with the head. You're not just getting stimulation into the head as you whiz around the place, but your whole sense of self is going with it. So it's having to integrate with what you see, with what you hear, with how you move. And therefore, that is beautiful, really, really lovely for brain development, rather than sensory stimulation, which that's your roller coasters and so on.
Right. Topic for today. So we're working through a series at the moment of sensory healthy somethings, places, scenarios, venues, places. I have one for today, which may be a two-parter actually, but I was thinking about sensory healthy bedtime for adults, as in not children. How do we create a sensory healthy going to bed experience? Because, for example, we are led to believe that if you have a mobile phone and you don't apply a blue filter, your brain is then going to be more awake for longer, therefore ruin your sleep. We've been told no digital devices for so long. We're told all these different things, but not from a physical perspective, because obviously your sensory health. From a sensory health perspective, what does a sensory healthy bedtime routine look like for somebody who's older than a child? So 18 plus, really.
Yeah, really good question. Individualized has to be the first answer. Curious, when we look at the sensory aspects of the phones and the digital in particular, there may be absolutely no reason whatsoever why you just don't watch those before you go to bed. You do have light. It may affect you, but it might have no effect whatsoever. In which case, if it helps you, then put it on and use it and don't be bothered about it and don't listen to anybody else. So it's finding the things that absolutely work for you. Do listen, because most people give advice, or there is general advice out there for good reason. So I think always go with general good advice, but then apply it to you. Does it work for you or does it not? And if it doesn't, just toss that piece of advice out the window, because it's useless and it's not going to help you. And it's only going to, you're only going to get frustrated going to sleep, because you actually can't get to sleep until you've actually watched what it is you need to. Some people need that routine. But yeah, and it's finding the level of physical activity. I do think there's something to be said about typically not exercising too late to bedtime. That has physiological reasons, but from a sensory perspective, if you do your exercises up until you literally just get into bed, it does help your brain and your body know where your body is, so that it can actually switch off and go to sleep. Because it needs to register where the body is, and then it can switch off. So I would pay attention to sights and sounds and smells. If bath times work for you, use bath times. If exercise works for you, use exercise. If you need certain noises on in the background, then put those noises on. The principles, that's what I always find. The principles are the same for children and adults and older people, but we just apply them differently according to what is specific to that age or to that individual.
It's fairly common, really. If you've got a small child, a baby or a 4-year-old, even a 12-year-old child, you will be probably making more efforts to make sure they go to bed on time, to go to bed well, which is why I was saying, how do we help adults have a sensory healthy bedtime experience that's positive? Because we put all the effort in for children, and then we stop somehow between, I guess, school, probably because, well, I got homework to do, and I could do homework till 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes if there was lots of it. So you have no routine. I know people who go to university and they have zero routine. They are drinking caffeine drinks all through the night just to get the term paper in, or whatever they've got to do, which of course is dreadful. From a physical point of view, physiological, emotional, mental, all that, it's terrible, because we're not designed to work through the night. We're just not. I've done night shifts. They hurt, literally, physically hurt your brain, not headache, just hurts. So that's one thing. And how do we develop better bedtime routines? And it's interesting about the screen thing. I can use a screen till really, really, really late. I've found with palpitations in particular, if I'm staying up awake because I can't go to bed because of my palpitations, I will use a phone. I'll watch something or read something or whatever for a long time. And then palpitations up, get into bed, go to sleep. I've always been that way. Whereas for other people I know, as you pointed out, it can be bad for you. In the same way that caffeine, you can drink caffeine late at night and go to sleep. But then conversely not. Exercise for me, if I do exercise an hour or two before bed, I'm not sleeping.
Uh-huh.
I'm ready for the next day. I've learned I have learned I don't exercise properly a couple of hours before bed. I'm not talking about walking up the stairs. I'm talking about a cycle or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it should, for those of us who are more typical, it will. If you get the oxygen pumping, it's very alerting, it's very arousing. It really puts you in a good place when you do exercise in order to function. So the last thing you would typically think of is doing exercise last thing at night. It's just that there are some of our individuals who will need to do that. And certainly adults, but that is the control that you can have as an adult. There are lots of children being put into routines because the adults think it's a good routine for the child to be in, and the child's like, no, that really doesn't suit. But when you're an adult, you have that control and you have that choice for yourself. So listen to yourself. But if there's things like Red Bull and caffeine or, all of the extra stimulants that are going into your body, then let's have a look at what else is going on from a sensory perspective that might be bugging you. Because sometimes it's actually that the texture of the bed sheets that bugs people, and that they find that there's too many creases, and they can feel those creases, like the Princess and the Pea, the old story that I don't know how many people know that one. So that there's lots of things, and the temperature in the room, adults take control, put it at a temperature that you like it, whether you want it hot or whether you want it cold, rather. Yeah.
And you get all that sorted, and then you get married, and then you find somebody that wants to stay awake, not late at night, but get up early in the morning, which is my wife, Jo. Whereas I don't function in the morning at all. I'm quite happy awake and working till midnight. That's fine. That's when my brain works. Jo is converse. We've been married 30 years next year, and we've had to manage that scenario because as much as you can get yourself sorted, thinking another person, it creates and potential tensions, shall we say.
It certainly does. That is one to work through. At the moment, this is going to sound strange too. Now, I am in a separate room, but only because my husband is in a lot of pain at the moment with his teeth. So it does me no good to be waking, because it's the auditory. I can hear him when the pain hits. He has to learn how to cope with it, and he's using his own strategies to cope with the pain. But that causes my ears to wake up during the night, and I can hear him making his noises to help himself with the pain. So although he manages it remarkably well, he's doing, but that's not good for me, because my ears are attentive and they wake up because it's my husband and because I love him, and it's just like I want to be able to care for him, but not during the night, do I not? So I am out, I am elsewhere, so that he does what he needs to. I can get some sleep, and then once this season, however long it is, settles, then we'll be able to go back again. But yeah, you just have to don't take anything as, if you have to do something that's different, then do something that's different, because you just do, and be happy.
Yes. I mean, the compromise, yes, to a degree. I think that's quite good in marriages. We need to think about the other person. I think sometimes compromise leads to two people being miserable, which isn't really a great idea. Yes, compromise carefully and righteously. Sometimes don't compromise. It isn't good. Do you know what? We don't need a waterbed. No, I'm going to throw up all over you. There are... Not that we've ever had that one, but that is one that you think, do you know what? No, that's not one to compromise on.
I went on. It was a double. I thought, I'll go on a camping. I'll go again camping and going out and getting a double inflatable, thinking this will be brilliant. Having never had one before, but of course, as soon as my husband moved and I moved too, and I have a sensitive vestibular system, so absolutely that got disposed of very quickly. Thinking, nope, I'm not doing that.
Yes, certain compromises are not advisable. I mean, try them out, but sometimes a separate mattress might be helpful, especially in a tent. But anyway, we don't digress. But this is the whole point. As adults, we focus as parents on our children. How do we help them? We have gentle routines. I know some parents, we never bothered, have these lights that gently, slowly go darker and slowly get lighter. We have a light switch on, off, deal with it. And they did. I know, and again, some parents would be very cautious about noises. Like you walk up to the door, oh, shh, don't make a noise. My child's going to sleep. Well, tough. And I never listen to that. Do you know why? Because I'm an adult and I'm not creeping around the house. If the kid can't sleep, then don't have us here for whatever you've got going on. Because again, it's compromising. Everyone's miserable. No one can hear each other. Everyone's saying, what? Pardon? Can't hear you. Get your child to get used to it, because they're going to have to get used to noise. There is, of course, a time when quiet is good. But generally speaking, I think we can be too protective and the children don't learn. I hoovered during the day. Oh, you can't do that. You'll wake the child. Tough. Noise happens. I'm not stopping my life because of it. And that's good. Other compromises, they're really tired, cranky. Okay, we'll let them sleep. So that's a good compromise. But as an adult, it disappears. I guess somewhere between starting secondary school and quite probably ending college or perhaps university, all the good disappears. So then we need to start again.
Yeah, because our systems change, our neurological systems change during those teen years. So it's classic. All of the transitions. There's a much later shift into the evening. Not for everybody. We actually went the other way with our boys, saying, look, well, actually, if you get into bed a bit earlier, then you'll be able to get up at 5 and 6. Which, considering the jobs that our boys started taking on, that worked really well. So we had none of this, staying up through the night. But then we had lots of early mornings instead. So yeah, it's the shifts that happen all the time. And then when you're an older adult, again, in your senior years, sleep changes again. And it's how you manage that, how you don't get frustrated with yourself when you wake up after a few hours, if you need the loo during the night and what that does to your sleep, and being able to enjoy those naps during the day.
I've recently moved my medication, which I take to my heart. I've moved it 1 hour later in the day. So it's 1 hour later in the morning, 1 hour later at nighttime. And what that means is now I'm having a cold glass of milk because I can't take my tablets with a hot drink because it dissolves in my mouth. Not pleasant. So I have a cold glass of milk to help the medicine go down at night at about 10 o'clock. I'm waking up every morning now much earlier because I've got to go to the loo, which is a bit annoying. I would never normally drink that late at night, but you know what? Needs must. So I've got to find a way of being okay with that. I either get really riled up. This is really annoying. I can move my medication earlier. That makes it much more complicated the following day. So this is the best compromise for myself of when to take medication. But it has a consequence. And I think the interesting part about you as a sensory healthy person, which is brilliant, but also the other bit, the occupational therapist part, is you need to get used to the noise. You've got to work with what is, because you can't work with what you want. If you can't get it, you're just going to end up bitter and frustrated.
Yeah. And it always comes back to the impact, the emotional impact, because, somebody who's not that well coordinated, in a way, so what? But when they drop something and it hurts somebody, because actually that's their precious vase that they brought back from holiday 20 years ago, and it has sentimental value, there's an emotional impact. And then there's like, well, what about this and what about that? And it has that, everything has an emotional impact. The frustration, the annoyance, and that's the core bit to try and help people with, more than actually the sensory issues themselves, I think. The understanding of the sensory issues brings into a lot more acceptance and hope for the future, and therefore, the emotions can dissipate a little bit, but there's an awful lot of exhaustion and irritability and frustration and anger and all of those things that really do compound a situation and make it so much worse than it needs to be.
Here's one thing that we worked out. As I say, we've married for nearly 30 years. This was a bugbear of Joe. I read a lot. I love reading. And I often read at late night. When I get to bed, a couple of hours, that's normal for me to read, because I'm not really going to sleep when Joe does, because we just have different ways of doing the day. Only in the last couple of 3 years, perhaps, has Joe started wearing an eye guard at night, so it blocks out the light so I can read. Because it would be the same thing every night. She would get to the point of, right, I'm ready for sleep. When are you going to turn that light off? I can't sleep. Now, I don't know why we never considered an eye mask, an eye guard, whatever you call it. We never considered that until I had to have one time when I had some sickness and I was sleeping during the day, and I had to have some darkness. And then it's like, oh, well, this is clever. Now we block the light out. Now we can go to sleep. Now we have blackout curtains twice in the room, so we like it quite dark. We've got a DVD player, which sometimes doesn't get turned off. Very rarely watch TV in the bedroom, but the little red light, I put a bit of black electrical tape because it really bugs both of us, so we like it really dark. So when I'm reading at night, I don't know why it's taken us till sort of 26 years of marriage for Joe to say, I can wear an eye mask at night and I can go to sleep and you can read your book and then no one's upset. Why it took us so long, I don't know.
But that's also, she has to have a tactile system that can cope with that, because she has to cope with having something on her face that she wouldn't ordinarily be used to. And that's brilliant that she can. So hallelujah. Life is good in the Barry household. But
It
yeah,
is.
yeah, other than that, it's like getting other devices that are not so bright. There's quite a few different things out there now for nighttime from that perspective. But I think definitely the easiest is, yeah, don't change the individual, just the person around that individual. You change if you can cope with having an eye mask, or if you can cope with doing something different, or putting ear defenders on yourself if the other person's making a lot of noise. Brilliant, do it that way.
But there are things that we can do. Now, that's not a compromise, I don't think, really. It's just a way of getting through the night, because I like to read and Joe likes to go to sleep. So she'll read for a bit and then she'll go to sleep, put her eye mask on, and that's it. And I'm reading for another hour or two because that's just the way I am.
Brilliant.
It's not even a habit. I mean, I sometimes think, is it a habitual thing? Do you know what? No, I don't go to sleep quickly at night. Never have. And I've tried and it doesn't work. Joe used to work shifts, as I've worked nights in the past as well. So she's always been very good at going to sleep, which always annoys me because she can get into bed, lie down, and she's asleep. And it's like, what happened? I'm there for 2 hours reading before I'm ready for bed. But that's because we're different. And that's why I'm thinking about adulting and night times and going to bed, because it is important to have a good routine. And as you say, with the seasons of life, it's going to change.
Yeah, it is.
So we need to consider that. Right. Moving on from bedtime routines, sleeping and waking, which I've sort of touched on a little bit because it's all part of the same thing. And again, as an adult. So alarm clocks. Where do we stand on alarm clocks? Because when I was driving trucks, I had 2 alarm clocks. I had a little one on my bedside table. If you're getting up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and you're not a morning person, it's almost redundant. So I'd have a mobile phone back in the day because it was a better sounding alarm. This is like 90s and early noughties. And I'd have that the other side of the room. No one could ring me, but I had the alarm switched on because it was really loud. I had to get out of bed. And once I had my phone in my hand to turn it off, I wasn't going back into bed. So getting up in the morning as an adult from a sleep, how do we make that a better sensory healthy thing? Because we can't always wake up when we would like to. Sometimes we have to wake up when we must do.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. So that is a great one, using that's using the auditory system and using something where you activate immediately your proprioceptors and your vestibular system, and you have to get yourself out of bed. That's great for some people. That would be too many steps to waking up and getting up for some. So to make that transition a little easier, it would be bringing in what can we do for light? So it is bringing in those bulbs that the daylight bulbs that come into play at a touch, and you get a gentle bringing of your visual into it being brighter. You would probably need some auditory to get your brain awake, because you never have earplugs. We don't have ear lids, rather. So our ears are always open. So having some form of sound is great. It'll be very interesting in time to see whether anybody ever develops a vibrating bed that is connected to a timer, so that it's the vibrations that will stimulate your tactile system, so it won't depend on your auditory system. I don't know if that exists at the minute, but that would be one thing, again, to get your body and your brain starting to wake up, but not using the alarms that for some people they just don't like that. But once you've got that gentle awareness, the other thing is, I suppose I was just thinking of Wallace and Gromit then, actually, where the bed, so proprioceptive wise, you are physically moved, so you have to move and you get your muscles and your joints moving because your bed automatically moves at a certain time. And then therefore it moves your head and your vestibular system, and you get more alerted that way. Most people, I would say, let's just do it more gently, so that you might do your Pilates in the morning in bed. So your head doesn't have to move. I think getting our heads up, that's the very last thing that people want to do when they're tired. So let's wake up the rest of the body first, but keep your head lying down, keep your head still. And then move your arms, pull, push, give yourself a rub and a scrub. When you're lying there, do your Pilates, do your little bit of exercises, and then start to move the head from one side to the other, slightly move it up and down, wake up that vestibular system in the way that you can do, in a way that's not stressing you out. or getting you grumpy for the rest of the day. Check the temperature. That's the other thing. You've got to check the temperature of the room if you can. Set your air conditioning if you've got some, or a heater, to make sure that it's the right kind of temperature. But slowly wake up, but use all of the senses so that you can be in as good a place and as happy as a place waking up, rather than being a big bear and that nobody really wants to be around.
Well, there is that. So here's my morning routine. It doesn't matter 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning starts. It varied quite a lot on the job I was doing, but my mornings, because I wanted to be asleep and I didn't like it. If I could get a job starting at 10, I'd be very happy, but they don't exist in the trucking world, not really. Certainly not back then. So I would want to safeguard every single minute. I knew how long it took for me to go to the loo, to get it, make my flask of tea. Everything was timed down to literally a number of minutes, not 5 to 10. So part of that was I didn't want to mess around with lots of alarms, because that used to annoy me. If alarm goes off and it snoozes, you wake up even more tired. So if I was going to get up, I wanted to get the last possible moment and not lose any more sleep than I absolutely had to, because I really didn't want to get up. So that's why I did it the way I did it. Also because I just didn't like getting up at all. Most days now I don't have to have an alarm. I can wake up, generally speaking, anything from 7 o'clock in the morning, maybe through 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't have to be up by a certain time like I used to, because I work later in the evenings on the radio. But yeah, when I was doing trucking, I didn't want to waste 2 minutes in the morning. So that for me is why I set it the way I did. I also tried to minimize the amount of impact on the rest of my family. Jo wasn't getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. She never did the dutiful wife waking up with me and making me a cup of tea. Why? I didn't want her to. She didn't need to get up till 8 o'clock, and take the kids to school. So that was never a problem. She didn't need to do that. I also didn't want to wake up the kids. So the less noise over a prolonged period of time for me made the most sense. So that's why I did it the way I did it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And a tiny little thing that we have, one of our sons has moved back in, having traveled around and done all kinds of things, back in the household, back upstairs. Again, at starting work, doing jobs that start at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. And I would rather not be woken up at that time. Initially, when he first came back, like hearing his alarm, thinking we have to do something here, because yes, I was being woken up at that time and not appreciating it. The simple thing about he puts it on a pillow, that's the simple difference, but it doesn't transmit down the way. It's just like, what can we do from a simple sound perspective to help? If you've got the neighbours, if you've got somebody else in the household, what little things can you think of? Just take a moment and pause and think. What can you do to help that little annoyance that actually, with a bit of thought, like an eye mask, might come to you if you just give yourself the space to consider your sensory processing and your sensory health?
So we lived in a house that was very old, terraced housing. So terraced housing, if you're not quite sure, literally you've got a brick wall between you and your neighbor. Your bedroom goes up to the brick wall, and the other side of the brick wall literally is their bedroom. That's a terraced house for the most part. So next door neighbors, I knew they were there for 6 months. Only they took a very, very short let. They'd sold their house. It was just literally somewhere to live until they got the next house sorted. Fine. But one of them, the son, and I think I actually did make a comment one day to the mother, who said, "I'm so sorry." But the son had his mobile phone propped up against our wall for our bedroom, effectively on the other side, and he never, ever answered the phone, and it rang a lot. And I was starting to lose the plot, because our office was against this wall as well. And we're always very considerate about neighbours. We don't want to transfer noise unless we have to. But yes, I did. I think I actually did make a comment of, do you think you could ask him to either answer his phone, stick it on vibrate, or stick it at the other side of the room? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm so sorry. Because it was actually quite negatively impacting us through a brick wall. Now, that's the next house. That's, I guess, quite unique in the UK. A lot of houses, if they're separated out, that's not a problem. But like you said, the noise can transfer from the room above to wherever you are. So a pillow still works for your son, doesn't work for you in a good way. And yeah, everyone happy.
Everyone happy. That's what we want.
Jo does have an alarm clock. Once upon a time, she said, "Can I have a really loud alarm clock?" So I actually searched for really loud alarm clock, and I found one that was called the really loud alarm clock. The problem was, whilst the alarm was loud, the buttons were loud. And if she tried to turn it off in the morning, just turning it off before her alarm went, which she could quite frequently do. Jo's always been a wake up like 2 minutes before alarm. I mean, it's amazing. But then she wanted to turn it off. Then she had to creep out of the bedroom downstairs to turn it off whilst covering the speaker, because the off button was so loud, it would still wake the rest of the household. I was very happy when that died.
And you didn't have a part to play in its demise, no?
No, I didn't actually. Just died. I was considering, can I help this pass to the other side of alarm clock heaven? But yeah, no, boot it into the hell of alarm clocks. I've now got an alarm clock where I can have all sorts of noises, which is fascinating. There's the
Oh,
usual beeps. You can have like seaside noises. There's like the waves, and you can have volumes. It's quite clever. And there's 2 alarms, and you can have a different noise. So I've forgotten what I've got now. Is it one of the cricket or something? I don't remember what I've got now. I don't use it very often, but it's quite good fun because you can have some fun in the morning.
oh, I think that is great. I love that. Maybe I should have yeah. I really like that. I have a little nosy, play with my phone as well, see what
Yeah.
other sounds it's got on it now. 'Cause they're always updating sounds, aren't they? So.
Oh, cockerel. I have a cockerel sound for the mornings.
Oh no, I could not do that. Oh, that would bring back too many memories.
Yeah, but it was quite funny. I did like the sort of the sea sort of lapping on the shore. That's quite a nice noise. That's gentle. But the thing is that goes off and I want to get up for a wee, which isn't quite so good.
And that's the thing, it's kind of like you want something to associate something pleasurable, like, so because I love the sound of the waves, but knowing that is telling me that that's time to wake up, I kind of like it, but then I wouldn't like it because that, it's yeah, interesting. Did I ever tell you that we had a donkey that we lived next to, and like, so if anybody has a donkey, like, no, I would destroy that piece of equipment that did a donkey braid because we did not appreciate at all hours of the day and night. The donkey would just bray away.
Did you not? What a shock. So we have farm buildings next door. They have grain and they have a fan quite often. I don't know what the fan does, but I guess it's blowing it out. I don't know what it does really, but it's quite a nice low resonating noise. So, I mean, we're on the other side of the house. Peter isn't my youngest, but it doesn't seem to affect him when he goes to sleep. Now, if something breaks in that thing and it starts to make a squeaking noise, I'll be on the phone to the farmer. But at the moment, the noise is quite nice and gentle because you mentioned earlier about some sounds can be quite soothing. I had a friend of mine, he couldn't go to sleep unless he had white noise. So he would have a radio, which he never tuned to a station. It was just to the non-station part. So you get sort of the white noise of a radio, not tuned in. And the first time he slept in our house, he stayed overnight. And I thought, what on earth is going on in there? I was like, is your radio broken? No, this is the right thing. Yeah, but it's not actually tuned into a station. Don't you want to like move it a bit more? No, this is what I have every night to go to sleep to. That was interesting.
And that's where we look at like brown noise and green noise, and I can't remember the differences, and I ought to, and I will go back and look at it. But there are different names for different types of noises that are just different sounds for different frequencies and so on and so forth. But I can't bring those back to memory just now.
But I always wondered with him, if he knocks the radio in the middle of the night accidentally, because it was right next to where he slept, what happens if you accidentally in your sleep tune it to something that's playing like heavy metal at 4 o'clock in the morning? Because you're not sleeping then, are you?
If you tune it to, if
accidentally.
Accidentally.
If he just knocks it.
Yeah, I think that would depend on how much the brain, if it's gone into deep sleep at that point. But yeah, no, heavy metal at that time would certainly wake me up. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a thought. Does he ever knock the radio dial and accidentally just move it just enough so it tunes? It's a fairly low chance because it's not like right in his bed or anything. But yeah, it was just fascinating to watch him setting up when he was staying over one night. And I was thinking, your radio's broken. Do you want another one? No, this is what I have every night.
And really? Good on him. Well done him. It's just like he knew what he needed. He knew what his ears needed. He was like spot on. It's like, yeah, right behind you, sir.
Yeah, that is fine. It was just, is this normal? Is this normal human behavior? Listening to a non-radio station on a radio, but he was happy.
Especially for a radio man, that must have been really bizarre.
Yes, I wasn't in radio at the time, but yeah, it was. What are you doing? Okay, so we've been looking today. I've written it down for once. Bedtime routines for adults, because I think it's important. Because as children, often we care for them greatly, and then we become adults, and it just gets tossed out the window, and we're drinking caffeine drinks sometimes at school, bad for you always, and then at university, not wise. Less parties, less time out, and do more your work at your bedroom in your office. But I think it's easy to slip into that, and the problem with slipping into that is you have to then undo that, and then as we get older, there's jokes on the internet now. I used to go out partying and clubbing. Now I stay in and read a book and go to sleep by 9, and I think that's becoming a trend. But do you know what? That's okay.
It is okay. 9 is the new midnight. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right, Anne, thank you. If you want to connect with Anne Laure Jackson, whether you live on Jersey or not, you can get a flight to Jersey from Manchester. It's quite cheap. You can then go to the Sante Centre, just saying. You can connect with her this way, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ, and you will connect with Anne on Sante and all that she does on Jersey. But you can get a flight to Jersey.
Yeah, I know. Come visit. Absolutely.
You can. Right. Might even be cheaper to fly to Jersey than it would be to travel somewhere in the UK to do the same thing. Just saying.
Yeah. Totally.
Just get yourself up early if you don't mind the early starts, because I guess the flights are going to be early, aren't they? Anyway.
But they know how to get up early now. Well.
And they do. And how to go to sleep, which is the whole point. Right. Anne, thank you.
That's great. See you next time.